और मुझे जिंदगी बड़ी होनी चाहिए, लंबी नहीं.
Your situation is like standing on the 20th floor of a building on fire. You decide to take a jump or wait for the fire to catch up.
I know Saloni would have loved Saloni Heart Foundation for so many reasons. I mean, one, she loved being the center of attention.
There were no hopes, no desires, no future.
She wanted to become a doctor because she didn't want other people to have to go through what she did.
She donated her eyes. Hi, honey. When are you coming home? Missing you. This would be Saloni calling from Millie's phone in her own squeaky voice, and I would play the game.
Saloni's favorite game was playing hide and seek. She would hide in some corner of the house, and who knew I will never be able to find her again.
Hello? Who is this? JK, leave me a message and I'll call you back. Bye.
She's hidden forever.
When I first met her, she was this little petite girl. Like, couldn't believe that she was a sixth grader. But it's only when I started talking to her, I realized she was such a bright kid, so much larger than life. She had so much more to offer her life. She knew exactly what she wanted from life. You know, one thing that always stood out to me was, you know, she knew that she wanted to be a cardiothoracic surgeon when she grew up, and she knew she was going to Stanford. It was never a question in her mind about, you know, if I go to Stanford. It was always like, yeah, I'm going to Stanford and I'm going to become a cardiothoracic surgeon.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that stood out to me about Saloni as well, was just how confident and how authentic she was. I think it's really interesting that you mentioned seeing her as this small, petite girl, because her personality was very, very contrary to her stature. I mean, she was so, you know, authentic and confident and just honest and opinionated. You know, she didn't like something, she would say she didn't like something. If she saw something that was unjust, she would talk about it. She didn't try to hide or pretend anything.
I found that she was such a creative person. She was incredibly generous, so brave, and above all, she was just so spirited.
Sincerity. This is what comes to my mind when I think of Saloni. She was innocent, yet perceptive beyond her years.
Every time I met Saloni, she always greeted me with a big smile. You could never tell that she was in a lot of pain.
She wanted to become a doctor because she didn't want other people to have to go through what she did.
Saloni and me shared the love for nature. We used to go for walks sometimes, and we used to observe different flowers and different colors of flowers, and she used to be so happy around these flowers. So one day she came to my place, and I have all these plants in the front yard, and she looked at this plant. She said, "Auntie, this plant looks different. It has a different color. It is sort of like a grayish color." I said, "Yeah, go ahead and touch it." So she went and touched it, and she says, "Oh, Auntie, this is so soft." She was so fascinated. She was so amazed.
Saloni was a person full of life, full of energy, and she was a joy to be around, very naughty, always had something funny to talk about, and she was the heart of the party.
अकल की बच्ची हूँ मैं, प्यारी सी कच्ची हूँ मैं.
Muskan, our 4-year-old daughter, had already filled our life when we were blessed with our second daughter, Saloni. She was just 2 years old when she went in for an open heart surgery. Little did we know that her surgery was botched up and her surgeon never told us for next 3 years. She was living a morbid life. She was weak, she could not eat, she could not walk from one room to the other room. She helplessly watched other children play. She was just 5 years old when she was declared terminal. No Indian doctor was prepared to take up her case. She was declared hopeless by the best European Munich Children's Hospital. Like one doctor told us, your situation is like standing on the 20th floor of a building on fire. You decide to take a jump, like get the surgery done, or wait for the fire to catch up, as in wait for Saloni to die.
She also just knew how horrible, what she was going through was, and she didn't want anyone else to have to go through that. And I think just her ability to take what she was going through and be able to extrapolate that to other people and say that at least other people shouldn't have to go through this was just really, really, really like empathetic of her. And it's very hard for most people to think like that. So I really admire that about her.
I actually remember the last day that I had seen Saloni. It was Halloween. Me and some of her closest friends had all gone to visit her at the hospital on Halloween night. And we'd actually made this poster over here, and we had also all been given one puzzle piece where we could write our own little message to her. And together, all of these puzzle pieces kind of just encompassed our love for her. That night, she had been so positive despite everything she had been through, and she was still full of spirit.
Time of death, 1 a.m. The doctors noted in their record. There is no loss on earth greater than the loss of your child. There were no hopes, no desires, no future.
In 2018, from April to December, Saloni captured my family's life. We walked with Saloni and her family through home life, through her school life, time in hospital, and then in November, her funeral.
This spot is for Saloni's memory because these were the plants that she liked so much. She was so happy and so fascinated by this. And yes, it is. I wish she was still with us, but she lives on. She lives on with the people in our hearts. Although we lost her, but she's still with us.
We experience the plight of Indian parents whose children are suffering from CHD, lack of accountability, infrastructure.
The scale of the problem is really huge, considering that India is a huge country and has a very high birth rate. We expect that about 240 to 250,000 children are born every year with congenital heart disease, and as many as 50,000, about a fifth of these will require treatment in the first year of life, and we like to call them severe or critical congenital heart disease. And if not intervened in the first year, we may actually lose them.
Nobody knows the astonishing number of deaths caused by congenital heart disease in India. There are only 10 pediatric cardiac centers for 250,000 children born with CHD in India every year, with less than 10% getting desired treatment. In contrast, US, 40,000 children are born with CHD every year, and 97% go on to live a normal life. Just like Jimmy Kimmel's son, Sylvester Stallone's daughter, or Shaun White, who's a 5-time Olympian, or Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I was also born with a congenital heart disease, but I didn't know anything about it. My parents didn't know anything about it. My hands and feet would turn blue in winter, but parents don't know what symptoms their child has.
It's a huge effort in trying to create this the infrastructure needed to tackle the issues of congenital heart disease, because we don't, in India, these resources are not existent at this time.
CHD stands for congenital heart disease, which means a child is born with a defect in the heart, and that is why we call it congenital.
You know, a newborn's heart is the size of a walnut. Imagine doing a surgery in an aorta of the size of a noodle, or a valve inside that aorta. It's beyond science, it is art.
Before Saloni, congenital heart disease was just a name, a disease in my textbook. But after her, congenital heart disease has become a cause very close to my heart.
Saloni Heart Foundation is exactly who Saloni was and what Saloni would have liked to do. So it's really keeping her alive.
I know Saloni would have loved Saloni Heart Foundation for so many reasons. I mean, one, she loved being the center of attention, and so seeing her name everywhere would have made her really, really happy. But I think more importantly, she really, really wanted to help people.
One of our missions at Saloni Heart Foundation is to help get parents of children like Saloni with heart defects get a free second opinion from a top pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon or cardiologist.
Saloni had this dream of being a pediatric cardiologist because she was going through all these health struggles, but she wanted to be one. And I feel like Saloni Heart Foundation is giving those medical students from low-income areas, giving them opportunities, giving them education to achieve their dream.
I think if Saloni Heart Foundation was there when Saloni was alive, Saloni would have been with us today.
Saloni will live on in the smile of all of these precious children.
Saloni was a giver, and she inspired us in many ways.
Once she was given an assignment in class where all students were asked to fill their wish list. If they were given $1 million, what will they do? While other students had long shopping lists of toys, cars, games, Saloni wrote, "Half of the money I will donate to disabled children and the other half for cancer." That was Saloni.
And she had prepared a plan to sell solar eclipse glasses to make money. Between Saloni and Muskan, they sold close to 250 solar eclipse glasses in 4 days and made $1,000 each. And she eventually donated $100 to Dr. Reddy's foundation. That's how she was. And when she passed away, she donated her eyes. So that 2 human beings could see again. That's who Saloni was. CHD is not a death sentence and should not be.
I have no hesitation in requesting all of us to lend our hand towards this noble cause, because the effort is huge and it's not possible for one person to achieve it by themselves. But the final outcome is worth it. And to see someone working passionately and tirelessly towards this end cause, I just request all of us to lend our hands towards this cause.
As a youth volunteer for Saloni Heart Foundation now, I have seen how much effort goes into enacting change, which is why any support towards Saloni Heart Foundation would be incredibly helpful.
There are thousands of Salonis out there. Their lives can be saved. You can make a difference. Open your hearts and donate.